Today I want to talk about the Food Safety Modernization Act, HARP-C, and what it means to you. First, a little bit of background. Under the old system of FDA's control over food safety, basically the agency was operating in a reactionary mode. It's also true that at that time, even though the outcomes were dictated by FDA regulation, it was very rare for FDA to have anything written requiring people to have a certain system in place in order to achieve food safety. And testing was used very often, and the agency was obligated to try to find food problems. Say the product was unsafe because they tested it and found a problem, or worse, there was some kind of outbreak and they had to do the studies in order to trace it back. And that's how the old system operated. Heavy on recall, heavy on testing, heavy on reactionary approach. The new system under HARP-C is completely different. Under the new system, the agency requires importers and manufacturers and distributors to take a proactive approach about food safety, to have a plan in place. And in fact, failing to have the plan in place is itself the violation. So even if the food happens to be safe, if you were to test it, it'd be perfectly fine, the facility could be out of compliance and the food could be deemed adulterated because the food facility didn't have a plan or didn't follow the plan. But you can see that's completely different. So the agency now, after HARP-C, will be looking for the food safety plan, preventive controls where required, and failing to have them, the result will be the food being deemed adulterated. Completely different system. So what should you expect? Well, first of all, FDA is going to want to see a system, and they're going to see it in writing. The agency is going to expect you to have something in place by the time the rules become implemented. But that's going to mean additional costs to the industry, which in my opinion will mean additional costs in food as well to the consumer. One of the places where FDA will be expecting to see growth in the industry is for food companies to hire qualified individuals who are able to make the assessment whether there's a known or reasonably foreseeable risk of a hazard and how to control it. And that will be not an inexpensive proposition. It'll be relatively expensive for companies to do that. So there would be an overhead cost associated with that. I think the other thing that you can expect is that as the agency begins to roll this out, that they're going to be expecting to see facilities actually implementing their programs and not just talking about food safety generally. And one of the more important pieces of this is the essential role that record keeping is going to play. You have to be able to document everything. From the government's perspective, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. Another area of, I think, important concern is the government's recent indication of concern and desire, really, to try to bring individuals responsible for failures of companies. And HARP-C provides a great opportunity for the government to do that. Why is that? Under the old system, in order for the government to prosecute somebody individually because of some food safety problem, the agency had to show that there was some violation of their old rules, that the food was in fact adulterated, it was introduced in interstate commerce, and the person was responsible for all that. Well, there's a lot of steps there. Under HARP-C, all FDA has to do is show that the company failed to follow HARP-C and the food is already deemed adulterated and there's already a prohibited act associated with it. So there's a whole lot less steps for the government to prosecute. And because of the government's recent desire to go after individuals rather than just companies, it does create some liability risk for officers and corporate managers. So what should you be doing right now? Well, everybody in the food industry should be determining when the regulation becomes applicable to them. When does the agency begin to expect you to be at least implementing the rule? And of course, the dates depend upon the size of the business or the amount of sales in food. So that's the first step. The second is most companies really should be in the business of doing a gap analysis of their current system. They should be evaluating what they do now, and they should be figuring out what changes that they should be making in order to implement the new regulation and the agency's guidance as it comes out. And they should begin the process of making those changes. If they do the gap analysis now, it'll help them with budgeting for the changes as they become important in implementation. And the last thing is everybody should be thinking about their suppliers. What do I know about them? What do I know about how they prepare their foods, their raw materials, their ingredients? How am I going to figure out whether or not they're sending to me something that I can use safely in my food? And these are all steps that anybody can be doing in the food industry and should be. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us here at FDAImports.com. We remain committed to helping the industry and our clients understand and comply with these regulations as they're implemented by the FDA.